All right. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. This is just a quick experiment with myself, Patrick Lovell, and my colleague, Roseanne Rabiola Mile. We were just having a conference, playing around with backgrounds, and we're talking about this incredible New Untouchables episode that we just did tonight that we recorded on July 11th, 2025, with really just a phenomenal discussion about what feels like freaking Armageddon, or in their words, actually genocide at a massive level, just connected to corruption. I
Yep.
mean, this is what we're saying all the time. You can see, and I just added, I wanted everybody to see Roseanne with the Clean New Deal behind her head and me with the Clean New Deal. And that's what we're trying to get people to understand because
Listen, what's really kind of amazing to me is we're talking about this and we're talking about the technical aspects and how excited everybody was and how m- my sense of things goes to um Mark Dan because Mark always has solution, solution. Let's get to the bottom line. Like I say, get to the meat and potatoes. So, what do we start talking about? I start telling you about how I was faced with all this corruption in my life
in Chicago,
in Chicago. And
home of the mafia, baby.
what was I missing? I tell you, I saw the corrupt judges. I saw this. I saw that. I saw the kid get away with murder, blah, 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 blah,
Straight
blah.
out of Scorsese.
Right? So what am I missing? I'm missing the money part. When I say the money part, I mean the detail part.
Yeah, the
The
control fraud, really. I mean, the quid
absolutely.
pro quo, all of the different techniques of, power that can, corrupt in the ways that it does, and it's remarkable. It's always been there, but it's just gotten.
That's right. That's right. And what do I say now? It's on fucking steroids. Or I use the line from the movie, ludicrous speed.
Ludicrous speed, just like from Mel Brooks, Spaceballs. Yeah, you froze up when you said that. Ludicrous speed. I love it.
Ludicrous speed. All right.
Yeah,
And so,
exactly.
right. So that's why, because I always tell people how excited or the light bulb went on or it all clicked when I saw episode one of The Con. Okay. There was like nothing more important because it took everything. It took everything and it gave me all the money pieces.
Well, you know what? I just occurred to me, and I don't know why it never has occurred to me before now, but I think the thing that you and I share that a lot of people don't actually have naturally is when we start to ask questions, we really ask questions. It's just a part of, the methodology of study and inquiry and everything else. But, especially when you become a documentarian, you have to really round it all out. You can't leave anything left open because if you don't have your mind wrapped around it, you don't understand the subject that you're dealing with. I would say the same thing just in terms of your life and your aspects of study, particularly in Italian history and Chicago and that sort of thing, but just in general. So to that point, look, Roseanne, what you're saying about and why it's so important for people to watch the first episode of the con.tv was, I think, further elevated by our discussion this evening with the new Untouchables. Because what we're talking about right now is we're talking about Trump's carnage of corruption. People can see directly that this guy has had the open door, the back door, the emoluments clause, just explosions all over the place with UAE's 747, backdoor crypto, people that could pay directly. But this, on top of literally the big beautiful bill, 17 million people going to get kicked off of healthcare. We've seen Doge destroy thousands of federal jobs in arenas that we need: science, technology, NOLA, weather, atmospheric, forecasters. We just saw the carnage in Texas in the flood zone, and you see all the scrambling and this idiocracy by, uh, you know, um, I was about to say Naomi Prenz, who was Christine Owens, right? Christine Owens and Barbie doll Nazi and all of these other insane things that we've seen all week long. Epstein in the Department of Justice and Pam Bondi and the way that MAGA is going nuts that they know they're being lied to over, you know, predation and billionaires involved with some sort of intelligence gathering and leverage and hijack, or excuse me, what is it called when you blackmail people and that sort of thing? Okay, great. That's intriguing. The weird part, like that June pointed out, was, you know, it seems like millions of people are projecting something, right? That like some sort of, I don't know, they were molested as children or some weird national thing that seems to overtake them. But let me just finish this real quick. And I see, look, what I'm just trying to say is that when you saw the con and what I was saying tonight in our discussion with the new untouchables is because what we learned in the con, soup to nuts, and then through our continuing work in the new untouchables, the Pecora files, especially when you heard the testimony of Kathleen Keast, who was, or Ingle, sorry, who was, you said, one of the most profound voices that you've experienced. And why?
Yep.
I'm going to give you an opportunity to say that, but I just want to kind of round this out real quick. The new untouchables were laying out such a catastrophic scenario where literally tens of millions of people are going to die because of what's been going on with USAID, with Doge, the cuts, this insane corruption that's happening in front of our face, with the complicity of the institutions of, government, particularly as it relates to the Department of Justice and all the insanity that we saw with this assistant attorney general Bove, who, we had a direct pipeline to the whistleblower that said, he informed his team to tell the judiciary, of which he's being considered to be on the third appellate court. That's a straight pathway to the Supreme Court. He's on the record for saying, fuck them. This is who Trump is going to try to put in the Supreme Court in context to everything else we're saying. And what you've learned in the con through Addie Polk, who discovers this, she's a gateway. She's, through her tragedy, is this stairway to heaven to take us to both one of our favorites, Mark Dan, who was able to get the only RICO conviction, racketeering influenced corrupt organization that 7 female prosecutors couldn't get P. Diddy on just recently because they didn't fully understand how to do it and they messed things up and it was weird because all sorts of problems. You need competent attorneys to know what they did. Mark Dan did this in a $60 million fraud that was the exact same mechanics that the $900 trillion global calamity was in on because of what Wall Street was doing, that we show you. And that ultimately that people are losing their minds, justifiably so, and trying to find a center right now as to how do we deal with this stuff. And meanwhile, we're showing you the professionals that have been doing this for the last 30 years that have prosecuted over 10,000 white collar executives, from the SNL crisis to Enron to WorldCom, healthcare fraud. They're specialists. They're the best in the world at doing this, and they're in our orbit. And we're just a gateway to try to get to millions of people, to make them understand that if we do not come together, if we do not unite, if millions of us do not understand the truths that we're revealing that lead you down the pathway of a $71 trillion revelation that gave billionaires and billionaire apparatuses free money illegally for the past 14 years, can you not understand this insanity that we're in the midst of, that everybody is reacting to? So
Yep.
now it's your floor and I got to be quiet, but it's just, I'm so inspired by what I saw tonight.
Well, yesterday I got to do some technical editing on an article. And I was a bit apprehensive. June Carbone is, I mean, she's Unbelievable. Okay. I was simply using my technical abilities that I've gathered over 25 years. But and this is what I love about being able to edit and look at people's words and hear people's words like I did with the 19 episodes of the new Untouchables. Okay. When I did the worked on the transcripts of the new Untouchables, they didn't give me the video. I just had the audio. So I got no impressions, nothing. I had to listen really, really closely. So as I'm doing these technical things, God forbid, there ain't no way I'm ever gonna change something that June Carbone wrote. I ain't gonna do that. When she got to the end and talked about caring and community, that's one piece. And that article is gonna go into Substack. Then today, she brings the discussion back to family and the big, beautiful bill. And what sticks in my head? Who is going to die the most? What group of people will die the most? And she said, Black boys 6 and under. As I say it, it makes me shudder. So, for me, it's sort of kind of simple. You either care or you don't. You either tell the truth or you lie. You either want to do good things or you're an idiot. You're not always going to be perfect, but you fucking gotta try. You gotta try. Okay? Don't give me no goddamn excuses. I don't want to hear, I don't want to, right, talk about, do I get like judgmental? Okay? I get judgmental about stuff because I want people to go out there and fight.
Well, I gotta say that is incredibly inspiring and incredibly spot on. And June Carbone has left an indelible, profound impression on me these last, I mean, really several months, many months, but the last couple of weeks, I'd say even next level because the data, the questions, a lot of it kind of ruminates with a common sense sort of parable based on what I've just observed in my life. But the data that leads to these sort of qualifications, like when you think of the tragedy that we've seen with the flood zone, right, and this Mystic Camp and all of the, reactions that have happened in mainstream media, and justifiably so. Anytime there's a tragedy like this, people are going to be hit, right, and they're going to think about stuff for what 12 hours, 24 hours, and then it's on to the next thing. But
Maybe
but when June said black boys under the age of 6, because of the big beautiful bill, because of what it's going to do to not just women's health care, really, quite frankly, and a whole variety of associated scenarios with that it's going to devastate young children. And I'm thinking to myself, this is the United States. And this on top of what they were talking about 30, 50, 100 million people dying in Africa as a result of US aid. And I'm thinking about, okay, look, people, and I've qualified this, of course, because I used as a writer, especially as somebody who does production and lives in movies and parables and fiction and those sorts of metaphors and everything else. I like to use biblical metaphors a lot of the times in my writing, particularly in social media, and I have throughout the course of the last several years, have I not? But here we are living it. We're
Yeah.
literally living it, right? Doesn't it feel? I mean, it's like I'm not a religious guy. I'm a spiritual guy. I believe in the universe and the wonder of life and the fact that the universe or the earth spins around 24 hours a day and that you can only accomplish what you can and you do the best you can given the amount of time you have and all of the other things that make you think and reason and all of those beautiful things, right? But it's like, no, we're in the middle of a disaster, but that's not some sort of mishap. It's not it's not a mistake. This is all engineered, okay? This is what I've learned on my sum total of my journey from my first film Forward 13, Waking Up the American Dream, through The Kind, and then everything we've done since with the Pecora Files, the New Untouchables, the Pecora Files, into the New Untouchables, and of course now the Clean New Deal. Why are we putting together the Clean New Deal, my friends? Because you do not understand. There is a diabolical, mechanical, vertical engineered scenario of technocrats that work for billionaires that are destroying the law and our lives. They're destroying the environment. They're destroying all life on this planet. This isn't hyperbole. This is
Yeah.
real. And they already got away with an insurrection right in front of our face. They got away with hijacking the Supreme Court, but it was all predicated on hijacking and using through smoke and mirrors and revolving door in a scenario that you don't see where we spent and provided tens of trillions of dollars illegally to these apparatuses that are now putting 17 million people on the dole to send them off to die. The first thing that I said in my first film, Forward 13, Waking Up the American Dream, when I started compartmentalizing the stuff in my mind, I said, I'm not expendable. Chances are you're not either. And that has been my message from the beginning. And what I found halfway through this journey, but it stayed true the entire time, you got two columns of your soul. You got character, integrity, dignity, decency, and beauty versus complicity, duplicity, and hypocrisy. These people, what June Carbone is showing us, what the far right and corporate America and the kleptocracy, is that been this fusion, which I call corporate fascism. Okay, there's been this fusion over decades where they have like herded people like sheep. We like to call them sheeple, but this has happened over decades where it's like they force people into churches, into this prosperity gospel. And yeah, people can get jobs and they can network and they can find marriages and everything else in churches. They've just got to play that game. But for those of us who aren't like that, those of us who are free thinkers, we live, liberty. We our tribe is all over the place. We discover we live life like a river, and hopefully we're better off, for it in the long run. We don't operate in those sorts of things. But what this banality, this vertical, this incredibly diabolical machine forces a majority of those types of people into these camps while at the same time destroying the family.
That's right.
Destroying the family because of the corporatocracy. Because if you have people that do not have stability, you can control them. And I've known that my whole life. You can control them the way I always described it in June, and I've had this sort of discussion all the time in corporate meetings, when I was in, working for companies and that sort of thing. I never approach anything on my heels. I never let things happen to me. I'm always trying to be out in front of things. I'm reading what people do. I'm watching what they do. I hear what they say. I watch what they read. I don't trust anybody, particularly in a very highly competitive environment. Why? Because it's dog eat dog. I knew that a long time ago. What have I learned from June Carbone? Oh, that's the way it's designed. Yeah, I've lived that for 30 freaking years. And so when I went independent, I already had all of these sorts of things. And so, I grew up as an athlete. I grew up competing. I grew up brawling. I grew up in a situation where I never backed down to bullies. I've the thing that stands at the apex of what I have my eyes on the prize on at all times has always been fascism. Always. That's just who I am, designed wise, right? And so I come through this incredible journey, and I'm so fortunate to meet because it became my job, became my profession, and we got these answers. And it led me to you and context all of these other people. And what we're telling you people is the sum total of what we've learned over the course of Roseanne's lifetime, which she always knew intuitively, and what I kind of knew most of my lifetime, but I got the facts because we did the investigation. I got paid to do the investigation, literally. We got paid millions of dollars, not millions of dollars to me personally, but to the production to make this thing work and everything else. But what did we get? We got the $71 trillion truth. You have to understand that the federal government of the United States, with the institutions of the Department of Justice and the SEC and the FBI, they operate north of $90 billion a year to protect you, the American people, from this calamity that we're in the midst of. Why? Because of corruption. Look at Pam Bondi. If you happen to be MAGA, do you trust Pam Bondi now because of Epstein and all of that kind of stuff, even though you're seeing that much of it? What I'm trying to tell everybody else who's listening, and we got to close this up because I could carry on forever. People, enough has got to be enough. You've got to fight, just like Roseanne said. You have to put these things together. It's like a puzzle in your mind, and when you have complete the puzzle completed, they can't piss on your head anymore and tell you it's rain. Because when you have the truth, you're bulletproof. Because when you have clarity, you know who the enemy is. And if millions of us unite, then it will be that battle between good and evil. And oh, yeah, is that Armageddon? Is that the rapture? Is that end times? That's the way it's written, by the way. That's literally the way it's written. And I'm being facetious because it's ridiculous that this is our reality. But it's reality because we have got so many monumentally weak and stupid people in the United States because they're buying lies.
Yep. Chicken shit club. You know, that's weakness to me. That's how I judge them. Weak, weak links. Got no guts. They got no guts.
Tell us about Kathleen Engel and why she was so profound to you.
Kathleen Engel was profound to me because she talked about how one guy, Alan Greenspan, he could have stopped. Like Paul kept saying today we're talking about a new Untouchables episode that was recorded today, which is
It's
July.
July 11th.
Okay. And I loved how Paul kept talking about saying bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. Okay. Because I've never seen him that excited. But Greenspan had all this information. And it's like,
Okay, I have to interrupt you. I'm so sorry.
go ahead,
You can't skip over this.
go ahead.
So I got to tell people, I have no idea who's watching this. If you happen to be over 40 and or let's say 60, and you happen to be a financial expert and you saw this whole thing pan out, you'll recall that Alan Greenspan, the former chair of the Federal Reserve, who was there since Reagan, who incidentally came out of Charles Keating's Lincoln Savings, and that's a whole huge part of this. But he became what they called the maestro, and he was the guy that led the United States through this amazing boom period that a lot of people refer to as the Clinton time period. Is the only time that we actually were in the black, right? I mean, the idea was that we were, we didn't have deficits. And the reason we didn't run deficits was because of what the control fraud was behind the scenes. that these guys were enabling through deregulation that would
Yeah.
lead over the course of 3 decades into what ultimately became what our story is in the con. But at that time period, when the world blew up, Alan Greenspan was all over media. Everybody interviewed him, and every joker in mainstream media, and this is where guys like Donald Trump actually knocked it out of the park and really changed the entire paradigm from this perspective, calling it fake media. Because none of them had the wherewithal to be able to ask any deep level questions, because most mainstream media is about access journalism. And they allowed him to say over and over and over, nobody saw this coming.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why that's insane is because he saw it coming more than anybody in the
Right.
entire paradigm. That's what Kathleen Engel tells us. And what does that mean?
What that means is he just chose, in my language, the bad side of his soul.
Okay, but, but what did Kathleen Engel tell us, Roseanne? Come on.
Well, of course, she said that the way the statutes were written,
And the
tell
whole purpose of the Federal Reserve is
Congress, telling Congress there was no equivocation, there was nothing ambiguous about the statement. Congress shall, meaning this is how it had to be done.
it's in stone, it's concrete, it's erected, it's shall. Congress is giving a
Shall, yeah,
rule, a regulation, a law to do what to the Federal Reserve? That they're mandated by Congress, meaning, no, the Federal Reserve isn't independent. The Federal Reserve is answerable to Congress.
that's right. And now it just, well, for
No, but,
years,
no, but it hasn't changed. Nobody's changed that. It's just nobody challenges that. And
right.
so Alan Greenspan, who was a fraud economist in the making of Ayn Rand back in the days of laissez-faire capitalism, and he played his saxophone. He was a cool jazz guy in Manhattan. Kind of had all the right accolades of that age, really, in terms of this, Friedman-esque school of Chicago laissez-faire that led to what? Ultimately, if you know your history, it leads to neoliberalism, which does what? Neoliberalism, it's basically privatization that destroys democracies. That's what it is, inside out. And so the key to all of that is the money. So Alan Greenspan, who was the maestro who oversaw what would become the largest racketeering enterprise in the history of the world, he had all the information. That's what Kathleen Engel reveals to us. They provided the information that we show you in the con at the con.tv that nobody in the world understands, because all of fake lamestream media listen to the maestro say nobody saw it coming.
Bullshit. Yeah,
He had all the information, and we discovered that. And what does that mean, Roseanne?
absolute power corrupts
But,
absolutely.
but, but what did Alan Greenspan lead to? It led to $71 trillion going illegally to a financial racketeering enterprise, just like what Roseanne says at the beginning. She grew up around corruption in Chicago. She knew a judge in her neighborhood, and all sorts of really horrific things. And she saw that, been there, done that, saw things the way it works. But what she didn't know was the money. Now,
Yeah.
ironically, the reason I met Roseanne Rabiola Mile is she's working with this group called Modern Monetary Theory. I got there because I knew that the Federal Reserve had backdoored tens of trillions of dollars, and I was trying to understand the mechanics of money supply and how this whole thing works and what the actual statutes were. Because in my undergraduate education, I never got that level of microeconomics.
Yeah.
I never understood the statutes, and I never understood what created the Great Depression. I never understood who Ferdinand Pecora was. I never understood what Glass-Steagall was. I never understood exactly why we created the SEC and when we created the Securities Exchange Act. I had to learn that through our journey. And when I did, and I kept, basically pulling the threads and pulling the threads and pulling the threads and getting to Roseanne at MMT and finally understanding, oh, wait a second. Oh, we don't finance our government through taxes or the federal government through taxes. All of these different other elements that just turned my world upside down in terms of how the actual economic structure of the superpower based on global currency and fiat currency all manifest. Oh, wait a second. You can provide tens of trillions of dollars with keystrokes to the financial system to bail them out of what? What
Yeah.
Addie Polk shows us, right? In episode 1.
Yeah. But the thing is this. I'm looking at everything like a puzzle. Okay. For me, the puzzle's put together. I don't always remember what's on every single little piece. Okay. Now, and the reason I'm saying that is because I think sometimes people don't listen to what we're talking about. Federal Reserve Act 13.3 illegally backdoored $71 trillion to criminals. What does that mean?
For 3 states. What does that mean? I
No,
don't
no.
hear you, but I'm saying this for the audience.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
I'm going to give you the easiest thing to understand, audience, if you can't put this thing together, outside of the fact that money is everything, outside of the fact that money is God in our
They
society.
know that.
Okay,
They
but
know
I got to ask you this, people. This is the simplest correlation, really. Imagine if you're a criminal. You're a complete idiot. You're setting up, let's say, hundreds of people in your neighborhood on some kind of Ponzi scheme, and it's all lie, it's all deception. You're robbing from Peter to pay Paul, and it's all a fraud, and you're lying to every single person. And you find out literally because you talk to an attorney, because you're hiring an attorney, because you're like getting out in front of it, that you think maybe something might go wrong. You find out every single thing you're doing is illegal, and you keep doing it. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then one day it all collapses, which all Ponzi schemes do. All Ponzi schemes collapse sooner or later. And the evidence is everywhere. And instead of the police coming to, arrest you and indict you and put you in a court where you go to a jury trial of your peers and the, prosecution proves the case and everything else, instead of all that happening, you go to the bank and the bank says, "Oh man, no problem. I got you. We're going to give you 10 times the amount of money if you just lost." How would life be for you if you could actually manage that?
right.
Is that wrong, or is that just pretty much exactly right what I just laid out?
Well, that's exactly right. And I like to say to people, okay, what happens is here's the Federal Reserve. You don't have to know all the details about the Federal Reserve, but here's the Federal Reserve. And they're doing whatever they want because Congress isn't watching them. Okay? So here's Federal Reserve. Federal Reserve says, we're going to give this institution, this Goldman Sachs, this Chase, this Bank of America, this Wells Fargo, we're going to give them money because we can't let them fail.
We're going to give them endless amounts of money
Okay. So we're going to keep giving them money. All right.
that
So,
they manage,
right?
and they got their resources for free. Imagine if you are, I'll just use oil, okay? Everybody who digs for oil or drills for oil, you have to have a whole panoply of materials and equipment and the wherewithal to be able to drill. That all costs money.
It costs money. That's right.
The
So
Federal Reserve and the banks literally don't make anything. They don't have any output cost. They get their money for free.
exactly.
Their
Well,
capital costs for free.
the
Or
word
they
we
did at that time period.
tell people is illegally because
Well, true.
Federal Reserve Act 13.3 doesn't say you can just do this.
They were bankrupt. That's the whole point. In Federal Reserve Act 13.3, the statutes say explicitly that it's exigent circumstances which provides the full faith and credit of the United States, which is a fiat currency based on, the world's reserve currency that puts us in a privileged place to be able to do this because we are a superpower. That doesn't mean that money's not worth anything by any stretch. So don't think that way because our money is based on natural resources and human resources and incredible technology and nuclear weapons and all sorts of other things that make it incredibly valuable. Okay. Is it paper? Yeah. Is it different than gold? Yeah. But at the same time, it still maintains value. But that being said, the nature
People accept it.
and people
But
accept it, the full faith. Yes. It also, the government can rule that by laws and you have to pay taxes. We don't fund federal taxes based on your taxes, but that's part of it as well. And I don't,
fund federal expenditures
right,
with
right.
taxes.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. But in terms of the illegal part of it, when we went through the Great Depression, which was created based on speculation on fractional reserve banking and overextension, and then a whole bunch of Ponzi schemes in between that created runs, and then the banks ran out of money, so they went bankrupt. Everybody lost their savings. We go bankrupt, and it creates the Great Depression. There's no liquidity for jobs and being able to finance what you need to finance to keep things rolling. Okay, that's really the purpose of finance. But that was at a time period where we had industrialization that was the centerpiece of the economy. Now financialization is the centerpiece of the global economy. And
And it
ultimately,
make anything.
and it doesn't make anything, but it got its natural resources, money, literally because it's digits. So that adds insult to injury. But what you need to understand about the statutes is it literally explicitly says, and nobody has ever talked about this publicly. I've seen it in papers and research papers because I knew where to look. I was doing the research after following the thread the whole time. But it literally says in the statutes that the exigent circumstance statutes are not to be utilized for speculating in commodities and or real estate. The entirety of the 2008 financial crisis was predicated on real estate.
Yeah.
And it's like nobody in Congress knew that.
They knew it. Okay.
No,
So
Bernie Sanders didn't figure that out
he
after he
knew
started
it.
doing the.
He had the explanation. Okay. Stephanie Kelton, who was his senior financial advisor, schooled him in it. Okay.
Yeah, but I don't know if he understood it necessarily. See, I know he didn't understand. I mean, he always says these platitudes, right? He always says, the billionaires do this and that, and the banks got away with this and that, but he never says what they did. Neither does AOC, neither does Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren does more so than other people, but never to the level that we have. Okay, not even close. Not even close.
Here's the deal. I ain't no rocket scientist. I ain't no academic. I'm no super brain.
You're
I'm
smart
not in
enough.
Mensa Club or whatever the hell. I don't even know what my IQ is.
Come on, you almost had a master's.
So, but listen, I got to finish this train, okay? You got all this money for free that went to all we like to call them financial terrorists at the banks because the bank isn't doing the bad stuff. The bankers are.
Yeah, and they could be hedge funds, they could be private equity guys, and they're all bad guys, and they're all playing with other people's money for short-term profit based on schooling and screwing people so that
Right.
they can get theirs. And then they play high volume. And a lot of the times, as we saw from Warren Buffett, most of these guys don't even beat market expectations over the course of times, but they're really big on short term, quite frankly. But what we've continued to do for 14 years, guys, is we continue to we continue to pile trillions of dollars into their coffers while they choke the system by government that's led to this catastrophe of Trumpism that is now into Doge, into destroying NOLA, destroying atomic research, and destroying atmospheric research, destroying all manner,
Health.
shape, or form of what we understand our government to be of, by, and for the people, because that's a facade. It's a corporate fascist system undergirded by a criminal syndicate that is using the full faith and credit of the United States to guarantee the mafiocracy, which is massive racketeering, that is now fueling fascism. So if you follow the bouncing ball, you don't live in a democracy. Free markets are bullshit. The law is completely bullshit. It's all a lie, and this entirety is going to have to be blown like a nuclear freaking Armageddon to purge the misery of tyranny and corruption if we're going to unleash the renaissance of possibility. Because it's not a question of the money, it's a question of knowledge. It's a question of commitment. It's a question of integrity. It's a question of character. And so you have to ask yourself, if you've gotten through this long, my friends, on a Friday night, after we're going to have to call this the recap of tonight's new Untouchables episode, right? I think that's what I'll call it. And hopefully somebody will see it. But I think it's worthwhile for us to just further the message, because I don't think I have ever been more clear on everything that we've done from the very beginning, even though I've been clear on it the whole time. But hearing our friends tonight talk about that we're going to experience tens of millions of lives lost.
Yep.
That's probably just the beginning. And I think these guys, and I put, quite frankly, and you and I have talked about this a lot, Roseanne, I put this modern era beginning at 9/11, even though it started long before that. But 9/11 is one hell of a column marker, as is everything since, because the level of intelligence duplicity that you could say is underscored in the things of like Epstein, for example, that's part of it. And I said this tonight in our new Untouchables episode. I said, what's so interesting to me is that Epstein is all over the place as if it happened today. We're talking about stuff that happened 2 decades ago, right? It's overcome MAGA Nation and by default most of the discussion in the last, I don't know, 72 hours, right? For something that happened 20 years ago. And I promise you, people, that what Epstein is, as large as it is, as sick as it is, as depraved as it is, and it's a lot bigger than Epstein and young girls at whether Mar-a-Lago or Epstein Island. That's, enough in a nutshell. But it's the financial side of Epstein is much larger than that, because that's what it was all about, was a grift for intelligence and blackmail and all that kind of thing. But that's tiny. That's tiny to what these two people on this screen continue to tell you every single day. And by the way, what's our friend with the eyes, the green eyes, Ocean? What is her name on Blue Sky that shares this all the time?
Oh, okay. We have we have Red Rebel, okay, and we have Earthbound 420.
That's who I'm thinking of. Yeah, and Texas Rebel and
Yeah.
Earthbound and a couple of others. Yeah, we really deeply appreciate you guys sharing us. I
Sam Stribling.
Yeah, Sam Stribling, thank you, thank you, thank you. We love you.
Yep.
Um, look, guys, what we have, and we've just carried on forever. We've told you about the $71 trillion truth, but literally tens of millions of people got set up. They literally got roofied and racketeered, just like somebody was a freak off session in one of P Diddy's parties. But this is the entire housing market, and the craziest thing is the judiciary was in on it. Okay, so when people start freaking out about all of the stuff that seems overwhelming right now, I can assure you it's still nothing compared to what we're revealing to you. The stuff that we've revealed to you is what's creating now. And so if you're going to, you know, be ready to battle and do everything it takes to turn the tables on this madness, you can't do it alone, first and foremost, but you can't do it without the knowledge of what was. And we're building an army of millions of you. Hopefully, please, it's the time to do this. hear us, see us, understand us, watch our stuff, read our stuff. We have the answers. We can do this. It's easy if we have millions of you on board. Go ahead, finish us off.
Failure, my friends, is not an option, and we do not have to have hope in order to persevere. I'm still going at it, and I've been around a while. Do it. No excuses.
Please tell everybody where they can find our stuff.
You can find us at First Piece, thecon.tv. All the material, all the links to all the 600 and maybe 20 truth bombs is at thecleannewdeal.org, or Patrick Lovell presents thecleannewdeal.com. So go to our YouTube channel. Okay.
What
Patrick
about Blue Sky? What about Blue Sky?
Blue Sky. I happen to be thecleannewdeal.org. Patrick is. Patrick Lovell presents thecleannewdeal.com. And you can also go to thenewuntouchables.com. We have that on YouTube. And we also have a beginning of a website, thenewuntouchables.com. Check us out. You don't have to learn everything in 5 minutes. Just take some time. Don't give me no excuses. I don't want to hear bullshit. That's all.
All right. Well, thank you. This was fun. I'm exhausted. My shoulder's hurting. I'll call you later. Thanks, everybody. Good night. And we'll talk to you soon. Be well.